Hey everybody, I'm live. Okay, I was not able to figure out this whole thing with Restream and Streamlabs and all this thing. It just like did not work for me. So here I am on YouTube. How's it going, everybody? It's nice to see you. I am Saint Sparkle Bear, and I am so thrilled to talk to you this morning because I'm not talking to you on behalf of Archwood United Church of Christ. I am just talking to you as Saint Sparkle Bear, and thank the flying spaghetti monster. I mean, thank all the gods and goddesses and Cthulhu and none of that, whatever, the workings of the universe, that I get to speak with you as myself today, because it's very difficult. Though I am a follower of Jesus, it's hard for me to speak from a Christian perspective week in and week out theologically, because I'm not a Christian and I'm not a theist. And we're going to talk a little bit more about that as I stream more and more, but I don't think that's really what I wanted to talk about today. Today, I want to talk about how it's kind of the end of the world, right? I want to talk about kind of what's going on with COVID-19 and how we're all feeling about that and what we can do with ourselves to help ourselves and help those that we love in this time, right? So that's kind of what we're talking about today. And I wanted to start our conversation actually with a poem, and this poem is by a Polish poet, and I cannot pronounce this person's name for the life of me. So I'm gonna like post it in the comments, uh, the name of this person, so y'all can have that. I'm doing it right now. His name is Czeslaw Milosz. I'm really terrible at pronouncing that, but there you go. And that is that dude's name. There you go. There it is. And he wrote this poem about the end of the world because he was Polish, and it was 1944, and he was living in Warsaw. And so you'd expect 1944, Warsaw was a pretty interesting place. And so this poet had something to say about what it was like to live in that time and in that place. And I think it has something to do with kind of like where we find ourselves. And so, since y'all know how much I love poetry, I am, of course, starting this with a poem. So here we go. So this poem is called A Song on the End of the World. It starts like this. On the day the world ends, a bee circles a clover. A fisherman mends a glimmering net. Happy porpoises jump in the sea. By the rain spout, young sparrows are playing, and the snake in gold skinned, as it should always be. On the day the world ends, women walk through the fields under their umbrellas. A drunkard goes sleepy on the edge of a lawn. Vegetable peddlers shout in the street, and a yellow sailed boat comes nearer the island. The voice of a violin lasts in the air and leads into a starry night. And those who expected lightning and thunder are disappointed. And those who expected signs and archangels' trumpets do not believe it is happening now. As long as the sun and the moon are above, as long as the bumblebee visits the rose, as long as the rosy infants are born, no one believes it is happening now. Only a white-haired old man, who would be a prophet, yet is not a prophet for he's much too busy, repeats while he binds his tomato. There will be no other end of the world. There will be no other end of the world. And so that's my poem to y'all this morning. And I had another end of the world poem, one of my favorites, and I might share it with you in a little bit. But first of all, let's talk about that. So that poem, I think, really speaks to the situation in which we find ourselves, that we know that we are living in a new world. We know that there is no going back to normal from here, that all of us are recognizing just how much change we're going to be experiencing. And it's really overwhelming. And yet we look around us, and all around us people are going on with their daily lives, and it nothing seems so big, so major, and yet there's all of this undercurrent, all of this tension and trembling, that we feel the change happening within ourselves, within our lives, within the people that we love, and and here we are in the midst of it, right? And so, what do we do? What do we do when we're in the midst of these things that are so huge, that are so epic and mind blowing? How do we approach it, and how do we continue to be the people that we want to be? Like all of us consider ourselves. I mean, I think most of us, right, consider ourselves to be uh, good people. Hello to the two people who've joined me. How are you? Please say something. How's it going? So yeah, so we all consider ourselves to be good people, but we're facing this complete unknown, and there's going to be like so much going on around us, and I'm going to check my phone because I think like maybe people are telling me, uh, oh no, we're good. Anyway, uh, I hope you all can hear me. Let me know if you can or cannot. I have no idea. Anyway, so we're in this new world. We really are. Like there is no going back from here. There's some crazy stuff going on all around us. And I think like in this moment, the question does become like, how do we remain true to ourselves, true to our hearts, and really make a difference in this time of like tremendous upheaval, right? So how do we do that? And how do we like save one another in this moment, right? Because it's not just about ourselves, right? So I've been thinking a lot about this, and I've been thinking about it like kind of throughout the course of this pandemic. Um, because I think at the beginning of the pandemic, I don't know about you, but I really freaked out. Like, I mean, I really, really, really freaked out. And I remember talking to a dear friend, and I have. We'll talk about this a little bit on the channel, but I have a history of suicidality, and that definitely came to the forefront at the beginning of this crisis, as I think it probably would for most of us who struggle with that. I mean, not for those who don't, but even for those who don't, like everybody's scared, right? And so I was talking to a friend, and and my friend ultimately reminded me of kind of like my mantra, the thing that I've kept with me throughout this whole time, sort of throughout my life, definitely throughout the last 15 years, as I've transitioned and dealt with all of the kind of the backlash and repercussions and issues and all of the wonderfulness that comes from it as well, right? But it's kind of like been the end of the world for the last decade and a half for me, and so this is not new, right? But what is new is that everybody around me is also experiencing it, right? Anyway, so the mantra, and it reminded me, hi Jam, it's Jam. Hey Jam, how's it going? Oh, it's so good to see you. So Jam is actually responsible for my user pick. Yeah, so Jam is a really cool artist, and you can check them out. Wormy Orchids on either Etsy or on uh, Instagram. And yeah, Wormy Orchids. Go check out Jam's art because it's really cool. And that includes my user pick, which is it's a sparkle bear. Yeah, it's a tardigrade. So all will be well. Okay. So my mantra for the last now that I've talked up Jam and how awesome Jam is. Uh, Thank you. I just set up my art wall yesterday so everyone could see all my art. It's very important to me. Hello, Nick. Hi. How's it going? Okay, so everybody, so I've been talking about the end of the world. It's major, it's happening right now, and it doesn't feel like much. Like it feels really mundane. Like we're going through the motions. In fact, it feels more mundane than ever because we're stuck in our houses, right? And so, hey, it's Tamar. Oh my gosh, I'm joined by everyone I love. This is marvelous. Oh my goodness. Okay. Um, so everybody, yeah, so the end of the world. So that's what we're talking about today. Uh, okay. It's very difficult to stay on target with everybody talking to me and everything. This is craziness. Okay, so hi. So thank you. This mug, by the way, comes from Tamar, Papa Bear. That's right. Because I am, in fact, a tardigrade, which is going to play into this in a second. Okay, so all will be well. So that's been my mantra. Where does that come from? Some people might have been asking that. And those of you who know me, you might know where it comes from. But I'll tell you a little bit about it. So all will be well is Julian of Norwich, who was a mystic way back in the Middle Ages. So she was a mystic during the Black Plague. And you would imagine, like, during the Black Plague, it was really hard to be like a spiritual and careful and loving person because, like, all around you, everybody was dying, like 40 to 60% of the population. That's a lot of people. That's a lot worse than COVID, although COVID's bad, right? And so, like, there she was in the midst of all of this. And she was just trying to figure out a way to survive and be herself in the midst of it, right? And so she decided to become a hermit, which I think, like, many of us can have that impulse from time to time, and that is what Julian did. She became a hermit, and she lived in this, like, tiny little hovel, and she had a friend who went and got her groceries, wore the mask and the gloves and went and got the groceries, and Julian just had cats, and she hung out in her hovel. But she had this amazing inner life. Like, her inner life was really astounding, and she was a mystic because she had these divine revelations about the love of God, right? And and her famous phrase is, "All will be well, and all will be well, and all manner of things will be well." Now, of course, she attributed that to, like, a good and loving God, but we're not talking about that. We're not talking about God. We're talking about kind of the patterns of life, the flow of the universe, right? We're talking about how life continues in cycles. That life starts, and like, and it goes and it ends. And not only that, not only individual human lives, but the lives of our civilizations, the lives of our societies, the lives of, it's just like life, both it kind of, it's scalable, like, your best software, right? So it can handle, like, something small, like individual life. We can also talk about life on a greater scale, like planetary life, right? And um and so when we talk about God, we're talking about kind of like the animating force beneath everything. Okay. So that's what we're talking about. So we're talking about the give and take, the move, the cycling of all of life, and all of us within that. Because here we are in the midst of it, and we don't really have a language to talk about our placement within it. And so that's what I'm trying to develop. Okay. So Julian was talking about God and all will be well, but we're talking about the universe, and we're talking about, like, ourselves within it, right? And to say all will be well while we are just these, like, tiny little beings in the midst of the universe seems insane. It seems insane to say that things will be fine when we're facing all of this, like, possibilities of death and destruction, right? And it's true. Like, there's lots of danger out there, especially right now. And I'm not just talking about the virus, right? But I think, like, what's important to keep in mind is that we're part of this gigantic cycle of life. And it's not just about us. It's not just about our individual lives, but it is also about our individual lives, right? And it is about how we will survive and how we will make a difference in this time. How we will do anything to make anybody feel better, or to spread love, or to be creative, or to be educational, anything constructive in this time. And so all will be well is a really important phrase, I think, for that, because it's like, because it's a phrase that helps to, like, ground us in reality. That, yeah, maybe, like, this moment will not be okay. Maybe next week will not be okay. Maybe the next 4 years will not be okay. And that we're gonna face struggle, and we're gonna face challenge, and we're gonna face things that we never thought we would. And it's gonna feel like really mundane from time to time, but all will be well. Because it's either all will be well or we'll be dead. But when we're dead, maybe all will be well. We don't know. So that's the phrase that I've been using, kind of throughout my entire life. I got this tattoo at 30 years old that says it, and I think, like, it's the phrase that I've kind of, like, hooked onto as a mantra, and so I extend it to you, and, not all will be well because there is a loving God, but all will be well because we are just a small part of a giant system, and none of us really have a sense of really have a sense of where we are in that system because we are within it. And it is moving and shaping and changing in ways that we cannot possibly know. And we're just part of it. And so, what we do in the midst of that is important. And so, remaining calm, remaining loving, remaining true to ourselves is important. And so using words like using mantras, develop your own mantra. Mine is all will be well. Yours might be like, I don't know, fuck it. I don't know. Whatever yours is gonna be. I leave that up to you. But just something to like remind yourself that like you're gonna be okay, because either you're gonna be okay or you're gonna be dead, right? And yeah, so you're gonna be okay. All right. How do I know we're going to be okay? Well, let's look at tardigrades. Yay, tardigrades. Woohoo. Yay, my favorite. I love tardigrades because I myself am a tardigrade. I got to be honest with you. Okay, water bears. They were discovered Tardigrades were discovered in the 1700s by a clergyman. Go figure. Hey, and so like this clergy guy, he discovered tardigrades and he called them water bears because they look like little bears, right? And my icon or whatever is a tardigrade, styled after the art of Hildegard of Bingen. And so tardigrades. So he discovered them. Now, cool thing about tardigrades is that they survive in lots of different environments. They can survive in volcanic vents. They can survive in the vacuum of space. They can survive in extreme cold, and they go into what is called a tun or cryptobiosis, and and that's kind of like where like they they develop this like little shell that goes over them, and they become like very and they sort of like dry out, they dehydrate sort of to the point where they shut down all of their living functions. And how is this related to Julian of Norwich and to COVID-19 and to the end of the world? I'm getting that right now. Okay, um so the cool thing, so they become very internalized and they spend a lot of time kind of like in themselves, right? And when they're not in a twin state or when they're not in cryptobiosis, uh, they're just like these cool little dudes. They're just like these little chubby bears, and they just kind of like hang out and they go swim around in the water, and they eat they eat fluids, like that's all they like, suck in fluids. They got these little teeth up front, and they just like, so they're just chill. They're just these little dudes, right? And and there's something about tardigrades, and something about the state of cryptobiosis that I think like might be relevant to us at this point, in our lives. And that is that there's, I think that this virus has really given us all the opportunity to spend some time inside and with ourselves in a way that we haven't before, and or that we haven't in a very long time. And I know that that's true for me. Um, and that gives us the opportunity, right? It gives us the opportunity to really develop, kind of like a deeper sense of self that isn't influenced as much by external things. But it also gives us the chance to really investigate kind of like who we are, how we believe, what we hold dear, what we love, and then work toward that with kind of like a direction and an intention that we maybe haven't before. And so this time might be a time where we're all internalized, we have nowhere to go. We're in a state of cryptobiosis, but there will be a time when when life will come back, when we'll find ourselves, back in a state of being in contact with others, swimming around in our little pond water, sucking up some algae, doing that kind of thing. And as we reconnect, life will be different, right? Life is different. And I think that this idea that, like, going along doing our own thing, right, and just being content with where we are and what we're doing, um, it's an interesting state to be in right now, and I know that that's true for me as I go and I grow tomatoes, bind my tomatoes at the end of the world, like in that poem, and kind of, like, figure out myself, and it's weird, I don't know who else has anybody else here's my question for you as I conclude this podcast because or this live stream because we're at about 20 minutes, so I think that's enough. Anyway, so here's my question. Have has anyone else found themselves kind of reverting back to high school self? And I don't mean that in a bad way. I mean that in a good way. Like have you found yourself sort of reconnecting with your creative pursuits or the things that you love or whatever in in a way that you haven't in a long time because you actually have the time and space to do it? And what are those things? I would love to hear that. I would also love to hear kind of like what your own mantras are, the words, the ideas, the thoughts, whatever that keep you sane in these times. I'd love to hear about that. Um, yeah, and I think that's about it. 21 minutes. That's enough talking. You don't need me to talk anymore to you. I love all of you so much. Thank you to the 4 people who watched, including Jam and Nick and Tamar and whomever else is joining me, that 4th elusive person. I'll find out who you are soon enough. All right, everybody. I love you so much. A lot of Jam said, a lot of memories resurfacing. Yes. Family, friends, and places. I would love to hear more about that soon. We should have a video chat, soon, soon, soon. Yay. All right, everybody. Love to y'all. Um, yeah, thanks for coming, everybody. I'll talk to y'all later. Okay. Love ya. Bye. Oh no, I have to find the thing. There it is. There's the thing. Bye, everybody.